three brief talks about first women who achieved first things. This morning it's three different women, and they will be interspersed with the music, where the music is the marching song of the suffragettes 100 years ago when they marched around London in their thousands. They had a marching song. The music's going to be played, and I put out a few leaflets so you can perhaps follow some of the words as well. But please, you'll be very relieved to know you don't have to do any singing whatsoever this morning. As with so many women's firsts, initial inquiries about who was the first woman to be accepted as a church minister has revealed more than one claim. It's sometimes said that Constance Mary Colt of the Congregational Church was the first woman Christian minister. We Unitarians, however, put forward the name of Gertrude Von Petzl as the first woman church minister, because she was earlier than Constance Mary Colt. So, who was Gertrude Von Petzl? She was a German, born at Thorn, then lived in East Prussia, where her father was an officer serving in the Prussian army. Her initial aim was to be a school teacher, but this was soon abandoned because she became disillusioned by the restrictions placed on the work women were allowed to do. And at 19 years of age, she came to this country to study first at St Andrews University in Scotland, and then on to the university at Edinburgh. She then decided she wanted to train to be a church minister. She certainly spent some time at Manchester College in Oxford, where a fellow student at the time, the Reverend Fred Hankinson, who later used to visit the suffragettes when they were in prison. He was their prison chaplain, a Unitarian prison chaplain to the suffragettes. They were in prison in London. He recalled that some of the male students at Manchester College, Oxford, had refused to allow her to sit with them during meal times. Her studies completed, she applied for the vacant church position at the Free Christian Church on Narborough Road in Leicester. And despite them having 7 male applicants, she was unanimously offered and accepted the position as minister at Narborough Road Christian Church in Leicester. So, in the year 1901, the Reverend Gertrude Von Petzl became the very first woman church minister. At Narborough Road in Leicester, she gained for herself a reputation as an eloquent speaker and a firm supporter of the suffragette movement. On Sunday afternoons, she held a men's meeting with men packing the church, and one report says that her address on the Sunday afternoon was the topic of conversation amongst the men for the following week. She was much in demand as a guest speaker at other church services. She came here to the old meeting house in Mansfield to lead the harvest service on Sunday, the 1st of October in the year 1905. And it was reported that extra seating had to be brought in for the evening service to accommodate the large number of people attending. So she became the first woman minister to lead a service here in the old meeting house and to preach from that particular pulpit. My imagination runs a little bit riot because I can only imagine perhaps not only the excitement, but perhaps even the fear and trembling that must have been felt in the congregation on that occasion when someone must have been wondering, is the roof going to suddenly lift and there'll be thunderbolt coming down on them? They've got a woman in the pulpit preaching to them. First time in their history. The following year, in 1906, she was invited to Berlin to conduct a service in German at the American Christian church there. The following year, 1907, she left Leicester and spent some years in the United States of America before returning here in 1910 to become the minister at Small Heath in Birmingham. Unfortunately, with the outbreak of the First World War in 1914, she became under suspicion, not as a woman, but as a German. And she had an espionage incident at her church in Small Heath. Despite many people speaking in her favour, she was sent back to Germany, where she lived till her death in 1957. Much of her later years were devoted to seeking improvement between the people of Germany and the people of this country. Here at the Old Meeting House, we have had a number of women ministers leading a service for us and preaching from our pulpit. And even a woman student, later the Reverend Penny Johnson, exercising a short ministry here during her student days. But we had never previously had a woman minister. That's now changed, as most of you know. Now, in this year of 2018, we have appointed an Hungarian woman, the Reverend Maria Pap, as the minister here at the Old Meeting House. For us here, it's an exciting time, looking forward to the future. And we all join in wishing her, our very first woman minister, the Reverend Maria Pap, very well indeed. Welcome and very welcome here. And we look forward to our future together with great excitement. Stretch of sea that runs between southern England and northern France is what we know as the English Channel. It's a cold and choppy stretch of water that has long had a challenge temptation for strong swimmers. Many have attempted to swim across it. Most have failed, with just a very few being successful. The first person who was successful was Captain Webb. He was successful in the August of 1875, completing the swim in 21 hours and 45 minutes. The first woman to successfully swim across the English Channel was Gertrude Ederle. Who was she? Gertrude Ederle came of German parents and was born in New York, in America, on the 23rd of October in the year 1906. She was 9 years of age before she learned to swim, but by the time she was 15 years of age, she had become a notable swimmer. Then 2 years later, at the 1924 Paris Olympics, she won a gold medal in the 4 by 100 metre rally race, and a bronze medal in the 100 by 400 metre freestyle race. A year after those achievements, she became the first woman to swim the length of New York Bay, breaking the previous men's record by swimming it in 7 hours and 11 minutes. Then, in the summer of that same year of 1925, she made her first attempt to swim the English Channel. Unfortunately, after 8 hours and 46 minutes, her coach, Jabez Wolfe, became concerned that she was swallowing too much seawater, and he insisted that she give up her attempt to swim the English Channel. She was upset by his decision and later sacked him, and appointed D.W. Burgess, a notable swimmer, as her coach. Gertrude is reported as saying, "When someone tells me I cannot do something, that's when I do it." So it came about that on the morning of the 6th of August in the year 1926, this American woman, 19 years of age, Gertrude Ederle, stepped out into the French side of the English Channel. She was covered all over with grease to hopefully enable her to keep warm in the cold, choppy sea, wearing a two-piece swimming suit that she had made herself from ladies' underwear, goggles to stop the sea water from stinging her eyes, and with a red hat so that she could be spotted in the water. She certainly had the determination to succeed. She thought that if 3 men had already swum the English Channel, then so could she. That day, the sea was predictably cold, but unusually calm. She made good progress, sucking cubes of sugar to keep up her energy level. Twice during the day, she encountered strong gusts of wind, and at 12 noon and later at 6 p.m, her coach wanted her to give up her attempt. Her father, however, who was in her accompanying boat, encouraged her to keep going, and as an incentive, reminded her that the new motor he had promised her was only hers providing she did successfully complete the swim. So she kept going, and finally at 9:04 p.m, after a swim of 14 hours and 31 minutes over a distance of around 35 miles, her feet felt the beach of Kingsdown along the English coast. She had swum the English Channel and done it in what was then a record time. It was a feat celebrated in many places around the world, not least in our home city of New York, where the people, including the mayor, had one of their popular ticker tape parades in her honour. Unfortunately, she herself had suffered damage to her hearing from the Channel swim, and spent much of her following years as a teacher to deaf children in New York City. And of course, the one subject more than any others that she taught them, how to swim. So it was the American, 19-year-old Gertrude Ederle, who on the 6th of August in the year 1926 was the first woman to successfully swim across the English Channel, and to accomplish it in a new time record that was 2 hours less than that of any of the previous 3 men who had successfully swum it before her. Her record time remained unbroken for 24 years. The first woman to swim the English Channel. Gertrude Ederle. In the 1950s, the Russians and the Americans were in competition with each other to be the first to enter the space race. The Russians were the early winners when in 1957 they sent a satellite, Sputnik, into orbit around the planet Earth. It was also the Russians who put the first living creature, a 2-year-old dog named Lakey, into orbit around the Earth. And then they put Yuri Gagarin into space in 1961. And it was the Russians who in 1963 put the first woman into orbiting the Earth, Valentina Tereshkova. She was born on the 6th of March in the year 1937 at the small village of Mansfield in central Russia, where her father was a tractor driver and her mother worked in a textile business. Valentina was the second of 3 children and went to school at 8 years of age till she was 16, and then continued her education by correspondence courses while working like her mother in textiles. She early on had an interest in parachuting and an enthusiasm for skydiving, which later were to serve her well when it came to searching the first woman to travel in space. It was after the success with Yuri Gagarin in 1961 that the Russian chief engineer came up with the idea of putting a woman into space. From 400 applicants, 5 were selected for training, including Valentina. They were required to join the Russian Air Force, so they learned how to fly an aeroplane. Valentina was finally chosen to be the one, the first woman to be put into space, because in addition to her parachuting and skydiving experiences, which were considered essential requirements, she also just happened to be under 30 years of age and considered to be the right weight and the right height. So there's more to being selected than you might think. Something's just happened. So it was on the morning of the 16th of June in the year 1963, at the age of 26 years, Valentina Tereshkova and her stand-in colleague, both dressed in spacesuits, travelled on the bus to the launch pad. There she was to undergo the personal health and safety checks before sealed into a capsule, and a further 2 hours while the correct safety precautions were carried out on the capsule and the launching procedures. They would have to travel at 15,000 miles an hour simply to break free of the Earth's gravity. All went well, and Valentina spent the best part of the next 3 days orbiting the Earth 48 times. She reported spells of nausea and physical discomfort, but continued to maintain a flight log and to take many photographs before safely breaking back into the atmosphere and returning safely to Earth. She was to spend the next 19 years being the only woman to have flown in space. She was honored in Russia with their highest medal, the Hero of the Soviet Union, and made a member of the Supreme Soviet, while continuing as a member of the Soviet Air Force. All over the world, she was honored. She was awarded the United Nations Gold Medal of Peace and an honorary doctorate at the Edinburgh University. The crater on the far side of the moon was named after her, the Tereshkova creator. She married twice and died in 2017, aged 80. Valentina Tereshkova. Of the talk that I gave yesterday of the three women, Nancy Astor, Ethel Wainwright, and Elizabeth Blackwell, the first woman doctor, and also this morning there are copies of the three talks that I've given this morning as well. Please take one with you if you're interested and would like to keep a copy of them if you like. May I also say that Maria Papp, who's now our minister, been here with us since June. She's very keen, as it were, for us to develop this theme even further, but she made the point, and we've all had to accept it, that in actual fact, what about the last 100 years? What have women have achieved in the last 100 years? And even more so, what still needs to be achieved? And so she's organising an event sometime in October, we're not quite fixed the date yet, in October, in which there's going to be a number of perhaps significant women from different walks of life come and speak and perhaps have a debate and a questionnaire and so forth, so that we can actually look at what women perhaps still need to do today to achieve equality with men, and also some of the things that we need to achieve perhaps as men and women together. Well, keep an eyes open, we'll let you know when that takes place sometime in October. We hope you'll come and talk about the present day difficulties and what women and men still need to do to this very day. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.